In the chambers, please. All right, can you hear us, Sheila?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. The time is 7 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here?
Pro Tem Henrihan,
Here.
Trustee Brittenell,
Here.
Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Engelhardt,
Here.
Trustee Poston,
Here.
Trustee Seifert.
Here.
All right, may we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please be seated. All right. The first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, sir, I did not hear from anyone today.
Okay,
I do not show any raised hands.
thank you. Do we have anybody signed in?
We do not, other than Mr. Arian.
Okay, and you're here for an agenda item, correct?
I am. Yes.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Easy enough. Then we will go ahead and close the public comment section and move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. It contains the minutes of the August 12th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting, the approval of a retail marijuana license for Rifle Remedies LLC, doing business as Green Cross Silt. The third item is resolution number 29, series 2024, a resolution of the Board of Trustees supporting the grant application for a grant from the Garfield County Federal Mineral Lease District and the purchase of an administrative vehicle for the town of Silt, Colorado. And item number 4, resolution number 30, series 2024, a resolution of the Board of Trustees supporting the grant application from the Garfield County Federal Mineral Lease District and the Phase 1 Grant Avenue Improvement Project for the town of Silt, Colorado. Would anyone like to discuss any of those separately or make a motion?
I'd like to ask Sheila, number 2, we haven't had the retail, hasn't been any violations or anything on that?
No, Trustee Seifert, I did talk with my deputy today, and there were no concerns with this application, and staff recommends approval.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay.
And the admin vehicle is for the Community Development Department, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Trustee Seifert to approve the consent agenda as presented, and we're going to give that second to Trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Before we move on to conflicts of interest, I just do want to note that Dan Meskin with the application for the marijuana license did attend the meeting tonight, which I always like to see.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
So thank you for being here. Next up, does anyone have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
Nope.
No, sir.
I have none either. Do we have any agenda changes by staff or by the board?
We do not.
Okay,
None here.
all right. Next item on the agenda then is our water rights update, water versus growth, with our water attorney, Michael Arian. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm Michael.
You promoted him to attorney.
I was going to say,
Which means he's going to charge us more.
Charges by the hour.
good evening. I'm Michael Arian with Colorado River Engineering,
Here.
water resources, water rights consultant for the town. I've kind of served in this role for probably over 20 years, so quite a bit of background on the town's water rights. Jim asked me to kind of give a presentation on the town's water rights, maybe a little bit of Water Rights 101. I know probably 2 or 3 of you have already had that, maybe from Mike Sawyer, the water attorney. And then segueing from the water rights, giving you all an update on a task that we're working on that's looking at where the town's water right portfolio stands in terms of future growth. So I want to kind of keep this informal. I mean, tonight's presentation is to help you all learn and understand more about the water rights. So feel free at any time to jump in and ask me a question rather than waiting till the end. It may be more efficient to do it as we're talking about a particular topic. So first off, you know, we've kind of grouped your water rights into maybe two major headings: domestic water rights and irrigation water rights. But within both of those, you all have water rights that are termed augmentation water rights. And so we'll get into sort of the water rights 101 now. You have water rights that are decreed for your domestic uses. Some of them are decreed specifically for irrigation uses. Those water rights in general are overall junior in the Colorado River Basin. That means that they're out of priority to more senior water rights, and for the town, those more senior water rights are down at what we call the Cameo Call, or down at Grand Junction. And so in order to allow the town to divert out of priority, there are plans for augmentation that have been developed to augment the depletions of the town so that the town can continue to divert when their water rights are out of priority to the senior water rights. There's also another type of augmentation that occurs in the basin, and it's known as the Historic Users Pool in Green Mountain Reservoir, or it might be referred to as the HUP. And that is a pool of water, 60,000 acre feet, that was created in Green Mountain Reservoir in exchange for Front Range entities to divert and take water out of the Colorado River Basin and over to the Front Range. And sort of the compensation was this 60,000 acre foot pool. The HUP protection applies to water rights that were perfected and put to beneficial use prior to October of 1977. And so that brings us to another concept on the water rights, and that's absolute water rights versus conditional water rights. Absolute water rights are water rights that are decreed on the basis of actual use. You've shown beneficial use, and the court has made a decree and a finding of absolute water rights. Conditional water rights are the other element of water rights. Those water rights are ones that have been decreed by the town for a beneficial use, but have not yet been put to beneficial use. And those water rights, every 6 years, the town has to go to water court and show a finding of reasonable diligence that the town has been diligent in applying or putting those water rights to beneficial use. And there's a number of cases that go on every couple of years. Some of your water rights are in different cases, but so far every diligence cycle, the court has approved and continued the town's conditional water rights. And also with respect to the historic users pool, as the town was asked to do more detailed accounting of their water uses each year to the state, and we prepared draft accounting, the state came back and said the town's water rights are not beneficiaries of the historic users pool, which of course we all flipped out about and said, "What do you mean?" And the state said, "Well, when the town did their 2007 augmentation plan, it says that all of the town's water rights are being augmented under this plan," which was, of course, a conservative approach because prior to 2007, Green Mountain Reservoir had experienced what they called the Heaney Slide, which limited storage in Green Mountain Reservoir, and they limited the historic users pool, and so that was sort of a fail-safe. So what it did is force the town to have to go back to water court in 2022 and confirm that its water rights were in fact protected by the historic users pool, those water rights that had been perfected prior to 1977. And just recently, what was it, a couple months ago maybe, I think Mike Sawyer and Carp New Hanlon secured the final decree, which confirmed that the town's water rights were beneficiaries of the historic users pool. So that was a good, important case, but an unfortunate case that the town, we don't view, should have had to have filed. It seemed reasonable to everyone that you know, it was clear that the town did not abandon or give up its protection under the historic users pool by the language that said all of its water rights were covered under that plan. And ironically, some of the comments in that water court case that came from the Bureau of Reclamation, who is responsible for administering the historic users pool, was that there's no guarantee of the historic users pool. And it was kind of, you know, made our argument for us. So that was, you know, one of those unfortunate things that the town had to go through. So anyway, the town has a number of water rights that are listed on the domestic list here. The silt pipeline, which is all completely absolute. The first enlargement, you'll see that there's a portion that's absolute and a portion that's conditional that you all do diligence on. Silt well number 1 has a small amount conditional. Silt well numbers 2 and 3, if we can go to the map that shows the next slide. These that we refer to as the domestic water rights are the water rights that are physically being diverted to the water treatment plant. Silt well numbers 2, 3, and 4 are decreed for municipal use, but based on their location, you know, their sort of function that it appears, unless there's some special you know, water system built in those areas, their function is primarily for irrigation. These are wells that are decreed to be alluvial wells that tributary to the Colorado River and would be best suited to be a part of raw water irrigation. And silt well number 4, as you all may know, is the irrigation water supply for over in the KOA area. Silt well number 2 under your, I think there's a recent or pending, I think it's called Rislinda. I believe you all are requiring them to develop a raw water system based on utilizing the silt well number 2 water right. And those water rights, silt well number 2, 3, and 4, are backed up by another water right in your portfolio that we haven't talked about yet, and that's contract water in Rudeye Reservoir. The town has a total of 300 acre feet of contract water in Rudeye Reservoir that can be released to allow for any of the uses that the town might need, and that would include diversions from silt well 2, 3, and 4 for irrigation, any other irrigation diversions the town may make, as well as augmenting the silt pipeline, the silt municipal well field, and silt well number 1 that specifically provide the direct physical source of water to your water treatment plant. The other element of your water right portfolio that's in your augmentation plan is called the last chance ditch consumptive use credits. So the last chance ditch, and we'll look at it later, we don't need to look at it now, but it's a ditch on the south side of the river. Those credits were conveyed to the town partially, and the town partially paid for some of those credits. But it's dry up under the last chance ditch over near the airport area. And the consumptive use credits, that's the amount of water that the crops historically consumed. That's what, if you ever hear the term historic consumptive use credits or consumptive use credits from a ditch that are a part of an augmentation plan, that's what it is. What the crops consumed, it's now dried up. That water is now available for the town to offset its depletions. And so that water right is decreed to be used two different ways. One is for augmentation, as I was just mentioning, with the consumptive use credits. But secondly, it can be used directly for raw water irrigation. And it has an alternate point of diversion that is decreed to the lower Cactus Valley ditch, which is the big ditch that runs through town. Some of you may know it as the Colorado River Ditch, because it's the Grand River Ditch. The Grand River Ditch Company and Grand River Ditch shares are what the town owns, but the water rights in the ditch are known as the Lower Cactus Valley Ditch. So the town, in its decree, has the right to divert water through the Lower Cactus Valley Ditch as an alternative to using it for augmentation. However, in that water court case, the Grand River Ditch Company was an opposer, and in order for them to allow that alternate point of diversion, they required language that said before the town can actually divert it through the Lower Cactus Valley Ditch, the town needs to enter into an agreement with the Lower Cactus Valley Ditch related to whether there needs to be, an enlargement, or if there's some limiting capacity area, or it could be just a financial payment to the ditch company. The settlement with the ditch company also, though, provides for the town to be able to convey its water rights through the ditch through Colorado water law remedies, and Colorado water law does allow a water right owner to obtain an easement or condemn an easement. I think that's, I think a fallback position. I think the town obviously would like to positively work with the Grand River Ditch Company rather than be in a adverse easement situation with them. Any questions right now on the domestic water rights?
So you said the historic use pool, that's not on here, that's in addition to all this on this page?
That is correct. It's not, it's something that is by law, by federal law actually, that then is incorporated into Colorado water law. That the historic users pool is for the benefit of the West Slope water users, and so it was a law that was published in the Federal Register that gave an outline that all of those uses that were in absolute prior to 1977 get the benefit and the protection of that 60,000 acre-foot pool in Green Mountain Reservoir. So it's not, you're not going to see it on here because it's not a water right that the town owns, but it's a benefit by federal law and recognized under Colorado water law as a, and as I mentioned, that the town ultimately had to go to water court and confirm its benefit, that it is a beneficiary under that historic users pool.
Okay. Yeah, then, thank you, I think I'm following you.
Sure, okay. Jim, if you want to go to the irrigation water rights. With the, I'll go to the simple thing first. The Silt River Preserve has irrigation and storage water rights. Those water rights are right now dedicated and tied to the land with the conservation easement for irrigation uses on the Silt Preserve. So at this point, in terms of planning, we're not incorporating or including those water rights as an element to the town for anything other than irrigation, of the Silt Preserve. I believe the conservation easement does have a provision that, AVLT can give permission to the town. You all would have to get permission from AVLT to do anything with those water rights other than continuing to irrigate the open space. There are 3 conditional water right ponds decreed over there. If the town wants to develop some ponds, you do have some conditional storage rights that you could develop over there. And those are Stillwater Ponds 8, 9, and 10. So then, with respect to your irrigation water rights, there are, various tanks and sources of supply to your raw water irrigation system. One of them is Farmers Irrigation Company, or FICO shares. The town gets those delivered through the east lateral of the Harvey Gap system. It's water that's stored in Harvey Gap, delivered through the east lateral. That's kind of at the base of the hogback. And then Headgate 19 is a turnout from the east lateral that delivers water to the town. As part of that sort of Farmers Irrigation Company silt project water, the town also has silt project water, 15 shares. The delivery point of that is from the silt pump canal. And one kind of feature or nice part of that supply is with the silt pump canal, once you utilize and use up your allotment, and these farmers irrigation company, sorry to back up on that, has a set allotment each year based on the fill of Rifle Gap Reservoir and Harvey Gap Reservoir. And so those 13 shares, each share gives you 4.5 gallons per minute for 65 days. And I think, Joe, you usually order like 5 shares a week, or you generally get 5 shares or 22.5 gallons per minute for throughout the irrigation season.
Correct.
By doing that. So generally a reliable supply, except that they always are off at least 1 week, sometimes more, for demossing the ditch. And sometimes in the dry years, if there's not enough water orders down a east or west lateral, they will not run water. So I don't know how many times, besides the demossing, there's been a time or two.
Yeah, it's down now.
Yeah. Yeah, for not enough, not getting water this week for not enough orders. So, it's generally a reliable supply, but for that tank, you all have some weeks, where Joe's got to try and shuffle water around because he's not getting that FICO water to the upper north Eagles View tank. With the pump canal, once you run out of the allotment of the silt project water, the Siltwater Conservancy District has 500 acre-feet of Green Mountain Reservoir water allocated to them from the Bureau. And they can run that through the silt pump canal, and the users can purchase additional water to provide additional supply. And as I understand it, the HOA
Eagles View HOA
Yeah.
has bought shares to keep them going through the summer.
And then Another source is the, Jim, do you mind putting the next one up, the map up?
Map?
So we kind of get an idea of where these things
Sheila
are
will
at.
take care of that for me.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Sheila. So you can see what we were talking about, the farmers irrigation ditch water coming out of Harvey Gap. The Silt Pump Canal pumps out of the Colorado River over the, as you all probably seen that building out there by Davis Point. Big pumps. Through town, I think most of it is in a pipeline, but there is a few open ditch sections where the town then can pull out and pump out of it. The Jacinta ditch is on the north end. It is a old water right that relies primarily on irrigation return flows. And when it's available and when the water's there, I think the town's share runs about 50 gallons a minute. And Joe, I don't know how reliable or that source has been for you.
It's reliable. We're getting about 35 gallons a minute through the irrigation season. We
Okay.
don't get the 55 gallons, but we'll take whatever we can get.
Yeah. And then the town has quite a few shares, almost 25 in the lower Cactus Valley Ditch, or the Grand River Ditch Company, the ditch that runs through town, that were conveyed through various annexations and from various subdivisions, Painted Pastures, I think Terra, the one on the west end. Anyway, there's several points which the town has pump stations to deliver water out of that ditch. That, as you all know, runs a full irrigation season from early to mid-April, all the way through October. Very reliable, consistent supply of water. And so, you know, that's a source that can help not only with any shortfalls under your current system, but to the extent that the town eventually gets the right to run its last chance ditch water through, it then becomes a reliable source of water, because that last chance ditch water is 3 CFS of water, and the ability to irrigate about 87 acres of land. So, you know, ultimately that is a potential source or supply to aid the irrigation system. So something to kind of keep in mind and be thinking about in the future of being able to utilize that asset, the last chance ditch water, through the lower Cactus Valley ditch. Also, Ware and Hines ditch, which diverts off of Elk Creek at Newcastle, comes a long ways, then around Davis Point. I think the majority of the shares that the town owns are of the most junior priority and is not as reliable. And that, Joe, it pretty much runs out.
Yeah, it runs out towards the end of July.
Yeah.
As soon as they cut their grass or while they're haying, we get plenty of water. Then when they start watering again, we run out of water.
Yeah, because it's the most junior priority, and then as Elk Creek drops, the users in Peach Valley who have all of the senior priority of the ditch basically take all of the water, and there's nothing else left on this last junior extension that came around Davis Point. And then again, as I touched on earlier, you have the silt wells 2, 3, and 4, which, you know, you've got number 4 in operation. Number 2 will be in operation with that new project. And then number 3, just a general idea of where that's at. That's going to be west of the Holiday Inn Express. So I think I'd call that the old Preddy property. Is kind of the general location of that to help serve. And so, you know, those wells can be used anywhere in town, but they're pretty much set up to service development that's going to be north of the river and kind of south of I-70, just as a general guideline. But again, it could be used anywhere if it makes sense to use that as a supplemental source to the other tanks. It can be pumped and put into your other tanks. So that's kind of, I guess, an overview of the irrigation water rights. And all of these senior water rights, the Farmers Irrigation Company, your Last Chance Ditch, your Ware and Hines, your Lower Cactus Valley, those are, of course, all more senior, all absolute water rights. Nothing's conditional. You don't have to go back to water court on any of those water rights. So any questions on the irrigation water rights? Okay, well, let's move to kind of the task that we are working on right now, and that's sort of looking at the town's water right portfolio and where that sort of takes you towards future growth. I kind of put a starting point at about 1,800 EQR. Joe, I don't know if, or Jim, if you guys, I think it's in the ballpark of 1,800. EQR is kind of the current service of the town. And so Table A, I might have it sort of misplaced here right now, is just sort of looking at growth numbers of 2%, 3%, 4%. We might come back to Table A after we look at the other tables, but let's go, Sheila, to Table 5A. So what we've done, what we're looking at, and this is part of the more detailed accounting form that the state is requiring of the town that we've put together, that incorporates a number of different elements. One is assigning some of your diversions to your historic users pool that are automatically covered in senior, when there's a call. And then looking at, what is the other out of priority junior water rights, and then how they're covered either by Root Eye Reservoir releases or by the Last Chance Ditch historic consumptive use credits that the town has. And with Table 5A, the whole purpose of that is just to kind of, you can see that your water right portfolio, just from looking at your domestic water use, 20,000 EQR, huge number. You're at 1,800, but that maximizes the use of your water right portfolio for your domestic use. And one of the reasons it's such a large number is the town has to only augment its depletion, and most of what is diverted on the domestic side is returned through the wastewater treatment plant. And so, typically it's around 5% is the depletion to the stream, so relatively small number. So, on the domestic side, you could go as far as you want. And so the real key is, being able to, and a typical municipality, and maybe it's less typical now because most municipalities are starting to move to the raw water system, but they're serving their irrigation component out of their treated water, and so you would also be looking at the irrigation into this. So really the key is as you have water to serve your domestic side, how are you going to serve your raw water? I think in some areas, Joe, you are pushing up against maxing out or don't have a lot of extra room right now.
Right now, that's why we're trying to add more irrigation lines in town so we can pump more water.
So going to Table 5A, in conjunction with Table 6, we started looking then at let's look at how do we bring in the water rights? How many irrigation EQRs can we serve? And so we kind of did a balance and to try and get those two numbers even. And where we kind of came out, ironically, is about double where you're at. So, the town is serving roughly 1,800 EQRs. And in looking at how to utilize the town's portfolio and kind of optimizing the water on the irrigation side, we kind of came up with being able to serve a total of about 3,600 domestic EQR and 1,800 additional EQRs for your irrigation system. So kind of a balance, both. So to get you at 3,600 EQRs from both your domestic side as well as your irrigation side. And so, that's sort of where we're at. There's going to be some refinement looking at some of these assumptions. But one of the things I want to kind of point, and going back to Table A, Sheila, if you don't mind backing up, if we're looking at 3,600 EQRs and looking at some different levels of growth, and Sheila, if you don't mind going down towards the bottom of that table, you can see 2% is in the black, 3 in the red, 4 in the green. If you're looking at about 3,600 EQRs, depending upon the growth, scenario, you're 20, 25, 30 years out with the water right portfolio that you have right
Is that
now.
the domestic use or is that the irrigation?
That would be combined. So,
Combined.
yeah, so we're looking at, 36, at a balance where it's 36, being able to serve 3,600 EQR on both the domestic and the irrigation.
So how can we get to that number without purchasing new water rights for both domestic and irrigation? So are we looking into purchasing or just better utilizing?
No, good question. I think one is optimizing or utilizing
What you have?
what you have, and the key, the one element that is the wild card is this last chance ditch historic consumptive use, because it can be used both directly for irrigation through the Lower Cactus Valley Ditch, the Grand River Ditch Company, and it can be used to cover the silt wells 2, 3, and 4 and the pumping from it. Your root eye water can also be used for silt wells 2, 3, and 4. And so, the key is, how to maybe utilize that asset and get it into the system, the Lower Cactus, I'm sorry, the Last Chance Ditch
Then you
water
have
right.
better chances on a decree for it later on because you build the historical usage.
Right, yes. And one thing that also to point out that we haven't, kind of factored in here is that, as the town annexes more land, some of these lands are going to have water rights with them, and so your portfolio is going to increase. Anything as you go to the east and maybe get into the western part of Peach Valley, you're going to get some of that more senior Ware and Hines. There might also be some Lower Cactus Valley shares associated with those properties. As you go to the north, you're going to, pick up Farmers Irrigation Company, Silt Project shares. And as you go to the west, it could be Lower Cactus Valley ditch water shares, as well as it could also be Silt Project or Farmers Irrigation Company. And then if you get to the south, there's, Rising Sun, maybe some other Rising Sun ditch water that comes in with those properties. Because, a lot of those properties are all irrigated and are going to have irrigation water rights. So in looking at this, it's assuming that the town doesn't get any other water rights. But I think, as we've talked about the different areas that might be annexed, there are more water rights, that would be coming into the town. And so certainly I know it's town policy and I know it's you all's philosophy that as these properties annex into the town, that you do require them to turn over or dedicate their water rights to the town to build up the portfolio. So anyway, I wanted to kind of give you guys sort of a sneak peek and kind of an update on where we were at while I was also giving you sort of the water rights 101, you know, some of the things that we might also include in what we're working on is looking at some extreme events related to a Colorado River Compact issue. People call it the Colorado River Compact Call. I don't like necessarily calling it that, because it's not really like a water rights call. The lower basin states aren't really calling you out. The upper basin states have an obligation to deliver a certain amount of water to the lower basin states. They started to come close to reaching a point where maybe the upper basin states, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, were going to potentially have to look at some sort of conservation measures in order to deliver that amount of water. But it's up to each individual state to determine how they might conserve the water. And right now, we don't know how the state might do that. The state might do it on the way they administer water rights by the prior appropriation doctrine. They start shutting off the juniors first. But they haven't said that's what they're going to do. And one of the reasons that it might be tough for them to do that is some of the water rights that might get curtailed are water rights that are going over the mountain to the east slope. And that's politically not palatable, I think, for the state to
Well, maybe
do
it is
that.
for us.
Yeah, it is for us on the west slope, but, so we're not sure how they might do it, and so we might look at scenarios where, for example, Rudai Reservoir its firm yield might be half of what it is, and so rather than the town having 300 acre feet usable to it, it might have 150 acre feet under an extreme scenario. But, you know, there's been a lot of, it's kind of quieted a little bit more recently, and that's because the issue of the Colorado River Compact, and that's because the upper basin states have always delivered at least their amount and more to the lower basin states. It's the lower basin states who have been overusing water, and the reason why Powell and Meade, you know, were drawn down to critical levels, and not so much that, you know, there was drought, obviously, in the upper basin states over the last 20 years, but there's been some good wet years, and there's been a little bit of rebound. Yeah, but the fact remains that the upper basin states have not failed, and in the near future doesn't appear will fail to meet their 20-year running average of delivery to the lower basin states. But I think it's something that, given, you know, a couple years ago where it looked like, you know, by 2025, if we stayed in the drought, that we might be approaching some sort of issue where the state had to do conservation measures, that we should look at those scenarios for you all. But certainly, you know, continuing to acquire from the annexations, I think, is the plan. And at this point, I don't think that the recommendation is to be out buying somebody's water rights. There have been, I think, some offers to the town that we've looked at, and they just weren't attractive because they really didn't provide you water when you needed them. These were water rights that themselves were a bit on the junior side. They provided water in May, June, July, and that really isn't necessarily when the town, you know, beneficial to the town, and so we didn't see that there was much value in those water rights. But obviously, I think Mike and Jim will keep you all apprised as other things come up. But I'm not sure if that was ever brought up because I think it was so unpalatable that I'm not sure it came up in any discussions.
When it comes to the use of water, domestic water use, 95% of it gets returned. So we have to augment basically 5% of that to put back in the system, correct?
Correct, yes.
What's the rule about giving water to somebody that's outside the community?
That's a good point. In our detailed accounting, the state is requiring us for all of the bulk water meter usage to account for that as 100% depletive to the stream, and so the town has to pay 100% of that freight in terms of water rights. And I think that was a reason a while back that we had made a recommendation, for you all to up and increase your rates on that bulk water, because even though it does provide some revenue, from a water rights perspective, it does ding you. And it is a small amount in terms of the overall depletions for the town. But it is 100% that you all have to pay 100% freight on whatever the meters say at the bulk water station.
And that includes properties that we serve outside of the boundaries of the town, correct?
Right, so potentially, unless the town goes to water court and amends its plan, only if they're not served on the central wastewater system. So I think maybe one example might have been the Panoramic Mesa, where they're on septics, and I know they were looking at trying to get water service from the town. They would have been considered 100% depletive, absent some action in water court that showed them to be 10 or 15% depletive with their, and showed that they got return flows from the septic systems back to the town.
Okay. Any questions? Very informative.
Very informative. I don't have any questions.
All right. Well, we'll obviously be back with you all once we finalize our study and have more to give you on future growth and some guidelines. But I think you all probably already picked up that sort of the one item to kind of be thinking about is how to utilize your lower Cactus Valley ditch, how to best enhance your raw water irrigation system. You have water rights out there. It's a matter of how's the best way to get the physical supply to your tanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Sure.
Next item on the agenda is resolution number 31, series 2024. A resolution executing an agreement with Free Up Storage for the provision of water service to the Garfield County assessment property parcel number 2179-101-00-018 in the town of Silt, Garfield County, state of Colorado, and staff is requesting a continuance on this agenda item.
Yes,
Yes.
we are. We are not prepared at this time to make any recommendations. We're still trying to work through the details with Free Up Storage in terms of putting a package together that works.
Okay.
So we had noticed this, but we're just not in a position where we are ready to move forward.
Okay. Are we hoping by the next meeting to have?
We are hoping to continue to September 9th and hopefully take care of it that evening.
Okay.
All right.
Someone likes to make
Mayor, I
a
guess to make a motion to move resolution number 31, series 2024 to September 9th, 2024.
I'll second.
motion by trustee Seifert to continue resolution number 31, series 2024 to the September 9th, 2024 meeting. That was seconded by trustee Engelhardt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up is resolution number 32, series 2024, a resolution of the Board of Trustees approving a special use permit for a Type 1 and a future Type 7 FFL license for gunsmithing to be operated at 2013 Pioneer Drive within the town of Silt, Garfield County, state of Colorado, subject to conditions. And I will invite the applicant, if they're with us, up to the table. If you just want to state your name and address for the record, and then we'll have Nicole do her presentation.
Tim Pace, 2013 Pioneer Drive.
Okay.
Alrighty, Mr. Pace brought in a business license application for a home occupation in the Lyons Residential. And after looking at the PUD, it specified that it wants to defer to an R1 zone district. So then looking in our code at the schedule of uses for gunsmithing, it is not defined. So it kicks it back to a special use permit. So Mr. Pace is here requesting a special use to allow him to run a gunsmithing business out of his home at 2013 Pioneer Drive. He has applied and received his Type 1 federal firearm license, which allows for him to do the gunsmithing but not manufacturing. Since he did receive that, it's a strict license that the federal government issues that they keep close tabs on, that regulates what he's allowed to do and what he's not allowed to do. So looking through this application, I've learned a lot, but this is not something that I am an expert in any way. So I've deferred a lot to the federal government licensing because that's what they do for a living. And so with them coming in and going through Mr. Pace's house and giving him the license to run and operate the business in a safe manner, I don't have a lot more to add other than he is looking to apply for a Type 7 license, which does include manufacturing. He did give us an operating plan that is going to go through a little bit more along the lines of what he's looking to operate and how it would affect businesses or the residential properties adjacent to him. But I do want to circle back around to that Type 7 license because the manufacturing portion of it is not maybe what we would consider manufacturing. So after I'm done with my presentation, I want to invite Mr. Pace to give us more detail. I did put, I don't know if you got a chance to review the staff report prior to, but I did put a couple links in there that help differentiate between the two that Mr. Pace had provided. The operating plan of what he's looking to do would be appointment only. So he's not looking to operate a storefront. He's looking to just have a home occupation where one person at a time would come in and utilize his services. Traffic would be limited to one person coming in. Some of the type of use would be for the Type 1 that he originally was applying for is the gun stock repair, trigger repair, barrel replacement. He would not work. I think the bigger thing is that he has stated, and it would be a condition of approval, that he's not going to work outside of his FFL license, whether it's a Type 1 or a Type 7, whatever is approved here tonight. He's licensed, he's federally licensed through there, as well as being open to having town staff and the police department come in and do spot checks, as well as the federal government doing spot checks. When he does have other people's firearms, they will be kept in a safe, a locking safe. He does have to record keep for ATF every gun that's checked into his possession, that he gives back, what he did to it. He, as I said, he does have random ATF inspections and is more than happy to have random town inspections as well. He is going to have security cameras. So he does have a lot of safety measures put in place, because that is one thing that was brought up in the planning and zoning, is the safety of everything. And he is going to take the steps to make sure that he ensures safety for break-ins. Would be a potential thing that could happen with a gunsmith, knowing that he has guns there. He does have everything completely secured. He's not going to do any work outside. The work will be restricted to a single bedroom in his basement, approximately 12 by 12. There's no storefront. He's not looking to do any signage or deviate from the initial and main occupancy of his structure being a residential occupancy. He is going to limit his customer base by appointment only. He's not just going to have random walk up and knocks, because he also does work a full-time job, and so he would be doing this on the side of working. One of my bigger concerns with not being as versed in firearms was the only thing that I could really, that would come to my head is explosive materials being stored there or filling ammunition. He's not doing either of those, so he said that there's going to be no explosive material stored at the property. And Mr. Pace does live in, as I said, the Lyons residential subdivision. He is one of the homes on Pioneer Drive that is adjacent to Highway 6. The comprehensive plan is silent on home occupations, so it doesn't give us a ton of guidance one way or another as to whether or not it would be suitable in a residential zone district for a home occupation, but the town at some point has deemed that home occupations are acceptable because we do allow it in business licensing. So we have been supportive of home occupations in the past. There is the reference from the ATF. Some of this is a little bit foreign as I read through it. There is a lot of information there, but again, as I said, Mr. Pace is a growing expert on all of this, and I'm sure that he'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the federal licensing or requirements. I did specify in here that the amended request was after the planning and zoning meeting. It was discussed at planning and zoning that if he's going to open up the type 1 with the desire to move to a type 7 at some point in the future, that maybe we just add that to this request so that he doesn't have to jump through the hoops, read public notice, and pay to come back in front of the Board of Trustees to request to move to the manufacturing. And so that is what he took that guidance and implemented it and gave us a revised request that would allow him to operate his type 1 that he currently is licensed for as he works towards obtaining a type 7. And I did put his request in here. I want to bring your attention to the second set of bullet points. It does say type 2. That is actually the option 2 for, it would be the second option that he's listed on here. That would be the type 7. And so that would be the difference of him being able to manufacture, would be able to, if he had the type 7, he'd be able to replace screws at cost, purchase parts for the customers, machine a part to become functionable again, replace a barrel, or rechamber a barrel. Those are items that he could do as a type 7 manufacturer that he would not be able to do as a type 1 gunsmith. Overall, the Planning and Zoning Commission had given guidance for him to go on ahead and make that request as he continued on. Overall, staff finds that the application and proposal meet the requirements to qualify and be approved for a special use permit. There appears to be no negative impacts to adjacent property owners, including traffic flow, as this business operates by appointment only. Mr. Pace has safety measures in place, such as security cameras and locked storage to ensure safekeeping. There is no proposal for outdoor storage, signs, ammunition sales, and that even further eliminates the negative impacts to adjacent property owners. He did pass all of his background and licensing requirements for the federal government and will be keeping his record books and abiding by all town, state, and federal laws. Part of those record books would be that with his business license application every year, we could request to see those. We could, he will have to submit his revised license every year, his renewal license. I don't know how often, is it annual that you get checked by the federal government? Or is it just random?
It's random.
It's just random. So whenever they come and do their inspections, we can request a copy of that to be submitted with his business license renewal every year so that we can make sure that everything is being kept up on. I do want to note that Mr. Pace came to the Planning and Zoning Commission with an overwhelming community support. I did ask him, I told him that I would note that in here. He probably had 30 to 35 people show up and speak on his behalf at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I told him that that was not necessary at the Board of Trustee meeting. He does have some people here that would like to speak on his behalf, but I told him that the overwhelming support is amazing, and I would note that, but we also, it took us a little bit longer to get through the P&Z meeting, so we didn't want to do that at the board level as well. But he had character testimonies, community support, people that spoke that would like to utilize his services, neighbors that supported his business location. All around, he had a lot of community support come and speak on his behalf during the Planning and Zoning meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval to the Board of Trustees on August 6th. And overall, staff does recommend approval for the special use permit allowing Tim Pace, which is his business is Rustic Rifle LLC, to operate a Type 1 FFL, as well as expanding the approval to include him to be able to operate a Type 7 if or when he does obtain that from the federal government. I do have 8 conditions of approval on here that I will read through really quickly. Number 1 is that all statements made by the applicant in the application or spoken verbally during the Board of Trustees or Planning and Zoning are considered conditions of approval. That the number 2, that he notified the Community Development Department of any changes, even if he thinks that it may not potentially affect the special use, that he would still notify us so that we can determine if it does affect his special use. Number 3, that the applicant stay in good standing with all state, federal, and town licensing, including an annual audit if needed, as I said earlier. Number 4, that the applicant be available for a town representative, including the police department, to complete a walkthrough. Number 5, that the applicant renew their business license by the deadline of January 15th every year, and that would include the current copies of whatever it is that we ask him for with the licensing or his record books. Number 6, that the applicant provide an additional requested document and pay, or request any additional documents and pay any remaining fees. Number 7, that the approval for that this is not an approval for construction, but rather an approval for the land use. And number 8, that the approval be granted for the Type 1 FFL with the option to upgrade to Type 7 FFL, that the applicant needs to communicate with the Community Development Department before the Type 7 is active, as it will require an update to his business licensing. I did put a recommended motion there. And now that I've said FFL so many times that I'm tongue twisted, I would like to turn it over to Tim Pace to give us any additional information that could help clarify the difference between the two.
Yeah, I guess the easiest way to look at that, if there's any question on the difference between a Type 1 and a Type 7, is going to be, a lot of people, when they hear the word manufacturing, they're thinking volume. They're thinking mass production, something like that. That's not the case here. In this scenario, for me to rechamber a barrel, to shoot a different cartridge, put that on somebody's rifle for them, that would be manufacturing. So that's basically what it means. It also allows me to purchase parts for somebody. If they come in, they've got something wrong with their firearm, and I can purchase those parts. I can maybe mark them up 20%, make a profit, and move along with that. That would still be considered manufacturing. The gunsmithing term on that, if a gun comes in as a complete gun, it's got to leave as a complete gun, which is what I'm referring to now as a Type 1. If it comes in parts and pieces, it's got to leave in parts and pieces. So that's the advantage of the Type 7.
And the Planning and Zoning Commission did have a question about bluing and the chemicals that were used for that?
Correct. I think that outside of just the general fear of a couple of the words here, firearms and manufacturing, and then you got chemicals and explosives, things like that. I don't have any desire to manufacture ammunition or sell ammunition. There's not a profit in reloading for somebody. It takes way too much of my time, and I don't have that. So I do hand load for myself, and that's totally legal as a citizen. But I have no desire to do that for customers. So I won't store materials like that for a customer basis. And then as far as the bluing goes, that is a fairly harsh chemical that also requires a lot of ventilation and stuff, and a large expense to get into that. And I don't have any desire to do that in my home. I don't want to, me and my wife both got to live there, So things like that, I don't have any desire to do. And so hopefully that eliminates the fears that one might have from a business like this.
So if you're fixing a gun, do you require seeing a gun license by any chance? Or you can just fix, let's say, anyone not restricting age? Or would you restrict the age of someone that's coming for a repair? Is that something that we determine as a board? Can a 16-year-old request to have a gun repaired, an 18-year-old without a gun license? How would that side of it work?
No, I would have to, uphold the laws that are currently out there.
Don't know the laws, okay.
So yeah, a child, so to speak.
So you'd require ID?
Not allowed to own a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, I probably would never be able to do business with them, right? I don't have, so from a federal standpoint through the ATF, I can assume when you bring me a firearm that you're legal to own it. I can assume that, which means that I don't have to do background checks on somebody just to bring me a firearm for repair. But if I want to turn that firearm back over to somebody else, I would have to do a background check on them. So they would have to pass all the same legal statuses that you would have to pass to purchase a firearm in a store. So, along with the 3-day Colorado weight that is a state law.
And I think Chief Kite would like to weigh in on this as well.
Sorry? Would you like to weigh in, sir?
Didn't hear it.
Oh, would you like to weigh in? Do you have some stuff to say?
I totally support this business. And really, the biggest part between a Class 1 and a Class 7, Class 1 is an already serial numbered firearm. He's coming in to replace parts on. Pull parts off, put parts on. No different than your car. Class 7 is he actually builds it and able to give that firearm a serial number to custom make for whatever the purpose may be. It's really no different than your automobile. It's just a firearm. As for gun, we don't have licenses within the state of Colorado. And we as a town are would be, I think, kind of tough, but not as tough as the ATF. Or the feds with the scrutiny that they go under. I 100% support this business. I don't see it being a detriment to the community. I see it being a positive to the community because he's providing a service that's pretty rare up here, or you have to travel some distance to actually get in to see somebody to get something repaired.
Mm-hmm. And part of my questions and arguments is not to prevent a business to enter the community, but to create the policies in which we feel comfortable that would make the citizens feel comfortable having the business within the community as well. That's where I'm coming from. Just making sure we are covering our bases which we have in any of the various additions that we've made here, but would we want to create new provisions as far as maybe notating the ID of the person, ID number, and then, you know, the date of birth or something like that, as part of just provisions, things that would help us ensure that we are checking the points that we must be. And I hear when you said when federal provisions only asks you to do background checks when you're reselling a firearm. Now, just throwing it out there, so it is a service. I say there are a lot of hunters in here, and you know, a lot of people that bear arms, and that's the law. It's great, okay. So, as SIL, do we want to just, I don't know, maybe how much more would it be to continue to do the background check for the people that, is that like, because you can do a background check online. Is that something we could require? Would that be against federal law for us to be adopting that as a town for a gunsmithing? Or is that just gonna cause so much cost? And I just, you know, repairing an arm, it's almost like, hey, okay, now I'm giving you a working gun. I'm just thinking worst case scenarios. And yes, I do see the utility. I do see the support, and I do see the need. But as a board, can we think together if we can create provisions to prevent some of the concerns that I'm trying to voice, if you can understand where I'm coming from?
Are firearms registered to a specific individual with the ATF?
I don't know that they're registered to a specific individual.
So if I go and buy a brand new gun, I go through the background check,
through it,
those
your
types
name's
of
on
things,
it,
but
yeah.
they don't associate my identification as a U.S. citizen with that serial number on that firearm.
They may, but I can't answer that for sure. I don't know for sure.
And if they did, you do not currently have access to it
I
if
do.
such a link did exist.
I would.
My point was going to be, you could simply, here's your license, this is what I see on the screen from the ATF, we're good. This person is that person, we're good.
I could obviously very easily ask for an ID, and I could record
Yeah, that was my idea,
I
was
could
to make
record
it
that
simple
with
so
every
that it's quick,
transaction.
but still
Check an
accomplishes
age.
that check.
I don't have anything against that. You know, I don't want the firearm to get in the wrong hands of somebody either.
I know.
So I admire that concern for this. As far as a background check goes, I think that I would just, you know, go with whatever federal laws are on that. Because there is a cost that goes into that, as far as filing each background check. And then you also encounter the 3-day hold, things like that, if all you're doing is repairing somebody's firearm, that is their firearm. Excuse me, and I don't know that it would be right or legal for me to hold that from them, you know. I don't know for sure.
And so I guess
If I may?
I had similar concerns, but then I also, because you're compliant with the type 1 firearm license, I guess that sort of alleviated or like builds in some assurances to me that you know what you're doing, I guess. But so are there requirements that if someone comes for a repair that you have to note their identity or keep record of that? Like, what is the licensure required?
That would all be in my record book. Yeah, I have
You're
an
required to keep a record book.
I'm required to keep an acquisition and disposition record book for every individual firearm that comes in my house, every repair I do, the whole 9 yards.
Right, because my concern then is if we're making up rules
That's,
for you to live by, but there already are these rules from the
there are.
firearms people who are experts on it.
And the purpose of that A&E book is for traceability.
Right.
This isn't for financial anything. This is for traceability on everything that you do.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to keep track of ID, some kind of state-issued, government-issued ID. I know there are several out there. I think would be just an extra measure
Not
of
opposed to
tracking.
it. Absolutely not opposed to it.
Yeah, okay.
If I may, the background checks are criminal checks that the state does. And, excuse me, they are held under the same restrictions that we are, that if we were to run background check on somebody. We have to have a purpose. And if they aren't gonna run a background check if the firearm's not being transferred. They're gonna be asking him, why are you running this person? And it's, well, I just wanted to make sure. That's not an acceptable reason. They're held under the same state licensing that we are with the police department, because these are confidential personal records.
How about acquiring identification? Is that permissible?
I'm sorry?
How about acquiring identification?
Oh,
Is that permissible?
Absolutely. No, they'll hand him their ID, and he's got to put that in his logbook. I'm very familiar with this process.
Okay.
He has to put it in his logbook, along with name, date of birth, age, address, and the weapon being dropped off with serial number.
Is there an age requirement? What would that be? Is it 18, 21?
It, as of right now, it's 21 for a handgun and 18 for a long gun or shotgun. But you don't see too many young kids going down to get a firearm repaired. They're going to be down there with mom, dad, brother, sister, so, with an adult. And I talked with this gentleman enough, I'm more than confident that if a juvenile did show up with something they shouldn't have, they'd be contacting us and we'd be contacting their parents to see what's going on.
That was why I asked about the license idea. It was just like, I'm Derek, and I say I'm Derek, and you have that record, and if something goes sideways after the fact, you have the documentation that says Derek dropped it off and Derek picked it up. What do you want from me?
But you can go back, I've had guns my whole life, up to even 30 years ago, a lot of states, you could walk in, give them the money and out, there was no registrations. There was no background checks. So there's no way of knowing, there's no way of, that gun doesn't mean nothing.
And
Now the new ones, yes, like I run the Safari Club banquet. All the guns that are donated, they go through a licensed dealer, we auction them off. They have to go back to him to get background checked before they can pick that gun up.
And I don't want to create a cumbersome operation for you by saying you've got to go through all of these background checks and all of these things and build in operational cost and complicate things. That's why I like the idea of, I have an ID, this person is who they say they are.
Absolutely.
I've met my due diligence requirements as required by the ATF.
Yep.
My
problem with that at all.
I have sort of a secondary question. You kind of led me there, Jerry. Is there a chance that you would become a dealer or a reseller over time?
So even with the Type 1, I would have the ability through the ATF to sell a firearm, yes. So in a sense, it kind of is a dealer type, but it's with the intent of gunsmithing. So yeah, I would have that ability to sell or transfer firearms.
With the Type 1, not even waiting until you get to the 7th level,
You don't
such
even
as
have
it
to
is.
wait for the 7th, no. But at the same time, keep in mind, this is a hobby business. I work 55 hours a week in manufacturing, in a real manufacturing world, making drywall. And no, I'm not looking to build a storefront out of my home.
And that would be
Now,
one of my
I don't
concerns.
want to say that I wouldn't sometimes need to do a transfer, but I'm not a storefront. I'm not a pawn shop, and I'm not looking to do that. And pawn dealer licenses are different.
Yeah, that was specifically my concern, was
that's a
that a
Type
repair
2
shop
or
today
something.
becomes a dealership, and what the community, I love the community support.
Right.
But if the community supported a repair shop, and then someone walks into this room and they see firearms on every wall with price tags on them because you become a dealer, I'm exaggerating, but you get the point.
Yep.
That's a different animal than what they agreed to.
Right.
And it's me just making sure that we understand the context that it could become that at some point in the future. Not that you have that intent now. I don't want to say you do and you don't.
If I get to a point where I'm making that kind of money, I could probably afford a storefront.
Yeah.
We have commercial space, I'm just saying. Come and see us.
The special use permit's for 2 years, correct? Or what is it in this case?
We don't have it designated in code. It's just
Oh,
by
okay.
adoption. So if you wanted to add that condition of approval that it needed to be revisited in 2 years, you could.
Okay, or whatever time frame we choose. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I couldn't remember. So yeah, we have a way of checking up on him. Easy enough. Then I had another question about the chemicals. You said they're pretty harsh. Is there any way they could ever go down the drain?
What I was referring to was the bluing that she had asked about.
Yeah,
I have no intent in doing that. I won't have any of that.
Okay, so you won't have any of those.
No.
Okay, so then that was just my...
I will refer, bluing or reload ammunition, something like, I'll refer that to somebody else. I'm not gonna be getting
Okay,
wrapped up in
gotcha.
that.
Yeah, because obviously my concern was protecting the water and
Yeah.
wastewater.
The only one question I have, I have a statement and then a question. I think that the record keeping is built into the FFL license.
Yeah,
I don't
it
think
is.
it requires us to say any further language in this ordinance or approval of a special use permit. So while there will be no signage on the property, are you intending to sign like a vehicle?
No.
Okay, because I think that would be one thing that I'd be opposed to if he has a vehicle that's gunsmithing or,
Right.
on the back of your truck that's parked in this driveway. I think your intention of running a hobby business secluded in a 12 by 12 square in your house is a wonderful idea, especially in this area. But I don't think it's something to advertise publicly. I
Yep.
mean,
I get it.
unfortunately, we had to have this meeting with your address posted and who you are.
Yeah.
But, further advertisement of what's going on at this location, besides your word of mouth or however you're going to advertise, I'd like to see us stay away from. So I think that, your answer to that question was no. So I assume that falls underneath the statements made during this meeting as a condition of approval. So, I'm 100% in favor of this. So.
Yeah, we want more diverse small businesses coming to Silt. Sounds like the safety checks are in place.
True.
I see no reason to not approve this.
To Trustee Clausen's point, do we want a revision point down the line?
Like a renewal period?
Renewal period? We
What-
can. What
I
is
think-
it?
I
What is
think
it?
the
What are the
AT I think
costs?
the fact that the
What are the,
FFL,
what are
that
the
they're-
time
he's-
as well as the monetary costs of going through that?
So if Mr. Pace were to have to come back in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Trustees, the public notices alone were over $600.
$7 just for one.
So it's beneficial, I think, for certain businesses. My ignorance to this whole business has had me lean on Chief Kite for a little bit more guidance because he is more knowledgeable in this area. So I don't know if it's something that we want to have Mr. Pace continue to put in for his business license applications, and I'll make sure that Chief Kite looks that over. And if there's any red flags or it looks like there's anything that's going to change, we can bring him back. Or if you guys just want to see him back every couple years, we can do that as well.
I think that he's going to be under enough scrutiny from the federal government and everything else and all the random checks and the things that they can do. And with him submitting copies of any of those that have occurred to us when he renews his business license each year, that should more than cover anything.
We'll see any red flags if there are
Yeah.
any.
And
Well, I mean, if there's a
that
red
cost
flag,
is
they're going
high.
to shut him down before we would.
Yeah.
The monetary as well as the time cost to me becomes punitive at a certain point where I don't want to punish you for the nature of the business you've chosen to engage in. And I feel like if we tell you to come back every year and have that as a sunk cost, including your time, I know you like being with us and I appreciate that, but P&Z is downright boring. So I don't want to make you have to go back in front of them.
Does he have to renew the license each year, right?
Each year, he'll have to renew his business license with the town.
Okay.
And then whatever he submits back to us with an update
It'll
of
be
his
presented
federal
to us.
licensing, and then if he's had
So then
any
there's the
inspections.
check.
And that's where we trust in the staff and in Chief Kate that there are no incidents, all, just like we would for minor's claim or some other business that maybe
Correct.
serves alcohol.
Yep.
Those checks and balances are in place.
And it may be a time-saving thing if I'll be in to check on and probably give him business. Well, I'm dropping
Recuse
stuff now if
yourself.
I can check on things. And I can report back to the board if anything out of the ordinary is going on. And at which time, if you wish to have this gentleman come back before you with anything I've given you, it'd save him time, save you folks time with other agenda items.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would you have to tell the feds that you were approved to work out of your home?
Yes. Yeah,
There's a lot of
that's
safety
a
built
condition.
in.
That's a condition right now of my FFL, is my FFL that I currently hold will be void if you guys don't approve this. And like she said, they were there, they did a 6-hour inspection. I had an ATF agent there for 6 hours. They know exactly what I'm doing.
They looked through your
and
sock
they've been
drawer.
through my whole life. So,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this.
Yeah, this is a public hearing, so if we have no further, then I will open up the public hearing. So the time is 8:26 PM, and I'll open up the public hearing in regards to resolution number 32, series 2024. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, I did not hear from anyone today.
I do not have any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Would any members of the public like to speak to this agenda item?
I'm just a neighbor, here for support for him.
Okay. If you, yeah, could you please come up
Yeah,
to the
we'll
table,
just
state
come
your
up,
name and
just real quick
address
say that it's-
for the
okay.
record, yeah, just so we get it all recorded like we need
Yeah.
to, so.
My name's Eddie Sauersig. I live at 2025 Pioneer Drive, 3 doors down from Tim. Him and I have been friends and neighbors for over 25 years now. And it's just one of his passions and one of his hobbies, and I have zero issues whatsoever with this type of an operation going on in my neighborhood. I welcome it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Next.
Hello, my name's Bub Donaldson. I've known Tim for damn near my whole life. This type of business is a very important part of, I guess, my lifestyle. As Chief Kai mentioned, we have to travel, be able to get these kind of services, and to have somebody that I know and trust with my firearms is very important to me. I think it's just a very, very good deal. As far as some questions that were brought up as far as transferring of firearms, for example, Jerry had mentioned, 30 years ago, we didn't have to have background checks. Up until 5 or 6 years ago,
About that.
the state of Colorado is one of the few that requires background checks for private transfers. If you live in Wyoming, you can transfer a firearm from me to you, no background check, no nothing required. You move to Colorado, it is totally legal. As far as those kind of, restrictions within the state happen, it's not necessarily illegal to transfer a firearm outside of the state. So, for Tim to be scrutinized on that, I don't think that should happen. But, the federal government's going to hold his neck tight, I'm sure. But that's all I got.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, the time is 8:29 PM, and I'll close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
No, I'm in favor of it. I know right now for like me, there's nobody around her anymore. The one that had, I think, is gone, so you gotta go to Junction to get a simple little thing done, so, I think it's great as a hunter. I have a lot of guns. I think it's great to have somebody local that I don't have to drive 160 miles round trip to get it fixed, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's, again, I support it just because, and also too, I mean, noting about that is that, say you have something that's minor wrong with your gun, that you may not get fixed right away because it is so cumbersome to get it done. So this is gonna improve gun safety in our community because the firearm is gonna operate more correctly and then be safer.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he already has it requires all this licensure, which makes it almost safer than some of the other businesses that might be run in someone's home, because he does have the federal government and all of that sort of watching him. And it's in your basement, right?
Yes.
So then the neighbors won't see anything.
No, I mean, they can't see nothing unless they're in my house.
So it's kind of out of sight.
Out of
which-
sight, yeah.
So I mean, I think there are those concerns, but when I see that you're properly licensed, my concerns are alleviated through that, and it just seems like it would be a fine asset to the community.
In his information states that the guns that would be arriving wouldn't have any ammunition with them. He's not gonna be loading them while he's there. He's not, I mean, so none of that's gonna be happening, so that increases safety as well.
There'll be no test fired in the backyard.
Yeah.
You have to get a separate permit for that.
Okay.
During daylight hours.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend approval for the operation and special use permit for Rustic Rifle LLC to operate a gunsmithing business Type 1 or Type 7 FFL at 2013 Pioneer Drive with the conditions noted above, and none were verbally added during this meeting.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan to approve Resolution number 32, Series 2024. I move to recommend approval for to the Board of Trustees for the operation of special use permit for Rustic Rifle LLC, Tim Pace, to operate a gunsmithing business Type 1 or Type 7 FFL at 2013 Pioneer Drive with the conditions noted above, or verbally added during this meeting. Seconded by Trustee Seifert. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Seifert,
Aye.
Trustee Poston,
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt,
Aye.
Trustee Clausen,
Aye.
Trustee Brentnall,
Aye.
Pro Tem Hanrahan,
Aye.
Mayor Reichel.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
For coming in and doing something new. So,
Yeah.
next item on the agenda is the pedestrian bridge 7th Street Mall concept update.
Okay, we've been talking about the pedestrian bridge for, I think you guys have been talking about it for quite some time. We are moving forward with, getting towards that 30% design. We did stop Roxall in their design process because their original landing site on the north side of the interstate and railroad tracks was one of the two properties west of 7th Street at its intersection with Front Street that recently changed hands. And there is a taco truck that has located, and they have expressed some interest in opening a brick and mortar restaurant. We did have a discussion of alternatives in the area that we could land the bridge, and we arrived at the possibility of landing at the south end of 7th Street that would cause the closure of 7th Street. And then we would look to create a pedestrian mall plaza on the remaining part of the right-of-way that would be a community gathering space. You have two concepts that were quickly drawn by the folks over at Roxall, giving you just a look of what the pedestrian area might look like. One is relatively simple. It's got some curved features, but there would be a small stage, and it's got the circular landing area, but it would provide meeting area or a gathering place in the downtown area. The second looks at more of a conceptual design, trying to incorporate what the river looks like. Again, it would have a small stage type function. And then this one had a stadium or oval landing area. All worked within the right-of-way that is 7th Street. There is some discussion in terms of the design that right now because of the height that we're entering the off-loading or the ramp, it requires 2.5 rotations. There's some discussion that it would be good to widen out the ramp so that we could just do 2 rotations, but that would encroach to the east or the west, one way or the other, in terms of the size of the ramp. Couple of things to just add to the discussion. We did have a conversation with the Water Conservation Board. They are interested in perhaps vacating that property, so that if we were to widen out that landing ramp, that we could get it down to a 2 rotation as opposed to the 2.5. Obviously, all these things are kind of up in the air, but what we're looking for at this point is some feedback on what's proposed. We would, as part of this, look to reconfigure Front Street to create some parking for the downtown business area, but then also widen the street out so it's a full measure of a street. Right now, that portion going east from 7th to 8th Street is narrower than what a normal street would be, so that would allow us to expand that out, but then also create some additional parking. The business that is operating, the roofing company, has expressed some interest that they would be interested in selling and vacating. The structure that's on the property is in dire need of rehabilitation, if it can be rehabilitated, and it doesn't seem that there's much of a desire to do that. So all of this kind of fits conceptually with kind of a look to the downtown business corridor or core to make some improvements that would make it more visitor and resident friendly. But what we're looking for from the board this evening is any feedback that you have on the conceptual designs and whether you would like us to proceed with Roxall to the 30% design stage with one of these, with the pedestrian wall concept. Doesn't matter in terms of whether you're looking at the stadium landing or the circular landing at this point to a certain extent. Really, at this point, we're focused in on our concept of closing 7th Street between Main Street and Front Street.
So I was confused about this. And so Sheila, can you scroll down just a little bit? So the pictures of the landings, option 1 and option 2, those actually would go sideways on 7th Street where this little red rectangle is, right? And I was not, because it's turning the other direction, and that had me disoriented.
You would have to rotate the picture that's on the screen right now 90 degrees to the right.
Clockwise, right? Okay.
Yes, clockwise, and then you would orient the same way as the conceptual designs.
You can see this
Yeah.
building here.
And I was
Is that
confused about
building
that at first, so I just wanted to make sure if anyone is confused about
Having
that.
similar confusions?
Yeah, exactly.
You
But,
solved your confusion.
Yeah,
I want to make
but
sure that's
now-
helping anybody else.
right.
So how is water and sewer through there going to be affected? Or have we not gotten that far yet?
We haven't really gotten that far.
Yeah, and they'll do bores and they'll do alignments, they'll pothole to find our water and sewer.
Uh-huh.
So make sure their piers are not interfering with where our water
Okay,
and sewer.
but it would stay there, or
It
is
would
there a
stay
plan
there.
to
It would stay
move
there.
Okay, gotcha. I guess,
Bulk water would have to move.
yeah, that would have to move. I mean, if we're going to redevelop this, then I guess no storage units not part of town. I mean shipping containers.
Shipping containers?
Sorry.
Well, no shipping containers.
Shipping containers, yes.
I would like to see us, if we're gonna, I like this option much better, landing it on 7th Street and closing that off and making a downtown core, and then I do like the parking option. I think the parking option I would look at as a future project. Since this is pie in the sky money anyway. With this thing ever getting done, I don't know where more money is going to come in. So I'd also like to make sure that we can build this entire landing on our own right of way and not worry about anybody's property trying to acquire it. If we're trying to get turns down, I think if we did the stadium version and stretched it out, you would have longer ramps between the turns, and we could probably squeeze it all on 7th Street.
Yeah, but the Water Conservancy expressed interest in maybe, well, you said vacating.
Vacating.
I mean, or would they, well, you said, I mean, they're not interested in selling. They'd be interested in vacating it.
Well,
I mean, is that, am I hearing you right, is what it's saying?
vacating means selling it. They're not gonna just
Okay,
give it
well,
to us
that's
for
what
free.
I-
They're not gonna happen
Yeah.
anymore.
I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly.
They're not
That's coming
signing
up
the
at our
deed
next
over.
meeting.
Yeah, no, there was a discussion that we had with them over the concept of, we had heard through the grapevine that there was some consideration that they were gonna move out of their current location.
Oh, okay.
Gave us the opportunity to talk with them about some options, whether they stay in town or whether they move out of town entirely. We just brought it up to the board. The board has yet had an opportunity to really discuss it at this point.
Okay.
And we're gonna discuss it at the next meeting. One of the big things that we've got to look at is our envelope on the 1,500, and if we can, the attorney, if we can even sell because of the way the land was given. So that's, that's coming up, so.
I think the move to the street is a great idea. I think it's making lemonade from, and I think the businesses will be happier instead of being acquired.
I think about the Boone in downtown Glenwood when they turned that into a pedestrian way underneath the brick. Granted, they did it after the fact that most of the businesses were there, and that was a far more complex, expensive, and timely endeavor to get done. But I was over there with my kids 2 weeks ago, and it's a fantastic space.
You'll walk around underneath it, it's
Yeah,
nice.
you walk around underneath, there's live music, you inevitably run into someone you know, and those things can happen when you have a dedicated pedestrian sort of common area. It in and of itself, it becomes a draw. Which I really, and I love the idea of being forward-thinking and building it now, as opposed to having to go back later and spend 3x as much, 3x as long, and disrupt 3 times as many businesses potentially to get it done.
Well, it's something-
This is strategic planning.
We could do the pedestrian mall now, right? I mean, not like immediately, but there's with a lot less cost. But then have the space to land the bridge later if it does happen. But if the bridge never happens, we still would use that space for downtown and all of that.
Right.
That's where you're.
It gives us different options, whether it's parking, whether it's the pedestrian bridge, whether it's both, maybe it's neither. But again, it serves as that common area that people can get together. It will be used if we build it.
Yeah. And granted, we don't,
If we build it,
this
they will
is,
come.
yeah.
Is there a movie about that?
I feel like I've heard that before.
Where would the fill station go?
My idea would be that the small bulk water would go away and the east commercial bulk water would be converted to a small bulk water, a small fill station.
So would both
Yeah,
of them
that's a
would
good
both of them
idea.
have to go, or we would keep the one on Front Street?
Both of the ones on Front Street would stay, and one of them would be a small bulk water, and the other one would be commercial.
So we wouldn't be constructing
You
any
wouldn't
new
have 3,
bulk
you'd just
water. It
have
would just
2.
be eliminating one
Yeah.
of the
We'd
3,
just be eliminating one.
which isn't necessarily horrible.
And the east bulk water, the commercial, does not get used very much. So
And that's the one that'd be eliminated, or?
that would be the one that would be converted to the small bulk
Okay.
water.
But yeah, I mean, granted, this won't happen for years, and you know, we don't have the money to build the bridge, but it would be nice to actually get it planned and get a set of plans, so someday when the time comes, we can. We're already
We're gonna plan it so my grandkids.
A different board.
There you
and
go.
Walk across
I
it.
don't think it's that far, Mr. Mayor.
Be a
So
different
with the
board and a different manager
30%,
by the
go
time
ahead,
that comes
please.
around.
Yeah.
With the 30%, then we can go out for those grants. Back me up.
Correct.
Well, when that happens, they will thank us.
And we have.
I think,
a
I mean,
great person
I
that's
love
gonna help
planning
us
for it,
getting
but I
those
just,
grants.
Now, what are your thoughts, Mr. Mayor, about the, doing a pedestrian mall type thing on 7th Street and closing it prior to even, like, say, within the next 5 years? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I don't know why my thoughts matter that much,
Yeah.
but I do. I think, you know, every community that you go visit, there's probably a great chance that you went and saw something at their community park that the street shut off. You know, I think we've lost our farmers market. You know, this is a chance to put that in a more visible location as opposed to 3 streets off of Main Street. This town, if someone's playing music in this town, the people are there. You don't have to have a big band come in. You have a small band come in and play some music. You know, I think maybe it makes the fire department look at relocating sooner than later if we shut off a major street next to them. So I'm all in favor of making that, and I see that as a possibility of something that can be completed. Whether we just mark it off and we have Public Works out there with some street paint and they paint some water-looking stuff on the existing asphalt.
Yeah.
We throw some plants, you know, you put some flower pots out
Some
there.
planters out there.
Want to see it.
I mean, look at the little community park that Newcastle has. It's tiny between a couple buildings, but there's
fills up
usually
with
people
people.
there.
Yep.
So, you know,
Well, that's the thing,
I'll
like-
go paint streets with Public Works. You know, give me a roller, I'll be out there painting.
Volunteer
streets.
day.
It's like you said, Veterans Park is a great location for a lot of things, but for something like a farmer's market, it not being on the main street as people are driving by, unless you're intentionally thinking, when I get home, I have to go to the farmer's market tonight, you're not gonna remember.
You're not
about
gonna
it.
remember.
Whereas if it was on Main Street, more people are gonna see it and they're gonna stop.
And don't forget, we did try that once. We had farmers markets
Well, it
down
was
there.
also though not in a space that was designed and dedicated for
Yeah.
that type of stuff. It was in the parking lot.
Well, that's true. I don't know. I mean, my opinion is no, just because whatever improvements we put down there, they're going to be torn up someday.
Well, I'm not saying like
with
major
pedestrian
improvements.
bridge.
Nothing that's
Some parking barriers or some paint,
Yeah.
some flower pots.
I just don't want it to look cheap.
You can volunteer twice. You can come back
Yeah.
Perfect.
and repaint.
And I'll be there to repaint.
We're gonna make you paint the decorative
Okay.
birds on the pedestrian bridge, by the way.
No. Nothing artistic is coming out of me.
Now, if we need artistic mural stuff, I know a guy that's done some buildings here in town. He's done some other places, and he's a very talented young man.
With the graffiti artists underneath the railroad bridge?
No, not that guy.
Oh, okay.
This guy actually does it. He actually has a business. He gets permission first, and
Yeah,
actually is commissioned to do the work versus doing it and being told to clean it up.
All right, cool.
I know this is an info item, and we're just discussing this, but we happen to have a business owner in this part of town sitting in the audience tonight. Would it be okay if he spoke to us?
I'd have no problem with Dan giving
I
us
don't have
his-
too much to
his-
say.
Does he
Just
want to
like all of
speak
you
to
guys,
us?
I think it's a great idea to bring people to the downtown corridor, and I think that's one thing we're missing, and not just my business would probably benefit, but all of the businesses would probably benefit to people grab a cup of coffee and go over there and take a seat, and there's really no place that's that accommodating that we have. We have some nice new benches in town, but no place that you can really grab lunch and sit down somewhere nice and enjoy our town. So I'm 100% into it, and I hope it's not a pie in the sky. I hope it's something that we can kind of get accomplished sooner rather than later, because I think it would be an asset, hands down. Great.
Okay, thank you for your input.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I guess thinking about it, I'd rather see that Jensen property kind of if we bought that and turned it into spaces, because I'd rather, if we're going to get rid of parking spaces, I'd rather have some more spaces. You know, if we get rid of them, I'd rather have some new ones.
It's gonna be a whole fire department parking lot that's gonna need cars to park in it.
Just empty. New parking right.
Yeah.
North side.
I think we can get creative and make some parking spaces down there. I mean, even if this time you make Front Street
One way and put direct
and put some parking down the side. I mean, I think there's cost-effective options besides buying property at this point, unless it's a deal of a century.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, it could be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should just close down 7th Street, just get everybody used to, that's a hangout spot now. It's not a road anymore.
Maybe
we do
we'd
close
that
it down for a couple of events.
but
We already congregate there. Hometown Hall, I got pictures of myself right
Yes.
there. There's a
Well,
photo
and this
booth.
idea came from Joe. So when Joe pitched it, I was like, as long as we can have twinkle lights. Like,
Gotta have priorities.
Priorities.
there are priorities.
But and I think, I mean, I guess I can see where Chris is coming from with, if you put something there, it might just get torn up eventually, but I also agree with Justin, like, a plaza could be there more easily than but maybe that's just too much. To do a plaza before the landing, it's there, and then just,
Well, yeah, because, I mean, some of that could be just putting some tables down there and some things that are gonna, it wouldn't be like, it's not like we're building a structure down there with shaded area and stuff like that. We're not talking about that. So that's not the type of stuff that's gotta be torn out. Putting some picnic
Yeah.
tables, putting some planters, a couple parking barriers and painting the pavement a different color.
So I'm in favor of changing the design for the bridge into the 7th Street. So that for me has been established because I think that's a better use than what we have currently planned. And we all got super excited about the possibilities. But I think that would be what's kind of asked of us right now, in priority. But as far as developing something later on, as far as a park or kiosk around the bridge project, that would be definitely a discussion that we all got excited about it. But as far as moving the project from where we have currently into the 7th Street, I'm all for it.
No, I agree. I'm all for this configuration. I just don't like the idea of getting rid of parking spaces unless we have new ones to replace what we get rid of.
Which is why we proposed the 7th Street realignment, or not the 7th Street, the Front Street realignment with the parking. Because we do need additional parking for our downtown businesses.
What is that noise?
It's our
That's
timer.
the timer
okay.
telling
I was
us that
I've
we're
been hearing it
over.
all night.
Sheila cracking the whip.
Right there, 7 seconds.
No, I'm pretty sure that's Amy.
Yeah.
Amy's
It is Amy.
They share the
She's
whip.
doing it with a big grin on her face. I know Amy.
Huge grin.
And then she throws that big timer up there
See, there's
saying,
that
wait.
red.
She's just biting at the bit to get to talk.
Yeah, financial reporting's next. She's been biding her time. She's in.
So I think you have a direction you're looking
We
for.
do, we do, thank you.
We like the realignment, and we'll
Looks great.
see what else we can do.
Further discussion, some of that stuff is budget talk and a lot of other things that go into all that. other stuff.
Absolutely, but
Long-term
this gets us to the next stage.
Yep.
And it gives us the concept, and I think we have a pretty good concept, because I think it would be a real asset to downtown Silt to have some sort of gathering area.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Then next up is the July 2024 financial report. I will turn this over to Treasurer Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is for the month of July, and 58% of the year has elapsed. We are doing well with our revenues as far as sales tax, use tax, trash, water, wastewater, irrigation fees. Our sales tax, we're steadily going up. In April, we were like 3.8% down from where we were last year. May was 2%. June was 0.74. This month, we are only 0.5% down, and I'll do a little spoiler alert that next month, we're going to be 1 percentage point ahead. So yay about that. We are doing well with revenues, of course, as I said earlier, and doing well with our expenditures. We're below most of what we had anticipated spending so far this year. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Anybody?
I have a question for Treasurer Tucker, just not on this. My question was, out of curiosity, how did you guys figure out your holiday hours in relation to the 4 10-hour days?
So previously we had 13 paid holidays. Now we're having 12 because the Friday after Thanksgiving we're already closed. And we are doing 10 12-hour holidays instead of 13 8-hour holidays.
Oh, okay. Okay. That answers my
We're doing
question.
12 10-hour holidays.
Did I say it backwards?
You did, but
I apologize.
Yeah.
We're doing 12 10-hour holidays.
Yes.
So,
Not 10
13
12-hour days. Yeah.
8-hour holidays.
so the reality is there's more holiday hours that are out there
Yes.
than there was before.
Gotcha.
But we did eliminate the one because there's no point in giving a holiday then on a day
On
that
a day
we're
off, yeah.
closed.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions for Treasurer Tucker. Thank you.
Amy, I have a quick question. You said expenditures were below where you expected them to be. Do you
For most
anticipate
of ours.
in the next month that the other shoe's going to drop and those will uptick? Like, are we going to see those normalize?
You will eventually, for the water and the wastewater fund, see that once we get more invoices in for the construction of that plant. General fund, we're not going to see that uptick because we're not going to be doing anything with the community park this year, which we had anticipated spending $1.3 million on. And then the rest of the funds, like the construction impact fund, where you see that it's 80% of our budgeted expenses is because we already did that bulk of the work. So no, I don't see, short of the water and wastewater fund, any upticks in the expenses, major upticks.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. We all good? All right. Next up is manager and staff comments.
I will just point out that the overage on time is not from the last agenda item. It's Treasurer Tucker's report.
Yeah, who's timing her?
Excuse me.
Exactly.
Her time.
Just a couple of things to mention. I did receive this afternoon, the CML District 11 meeting is going to be held at the Grand Junction Police Department Training Room. Starts at 5 p.m. with a social hour, followed by dinner and meeting at 6 p.m. If anybody is interested in joining, I will go ahead and get you signed up for it.
What's the date?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's September 26th.
Only what?
26th,
And it starts at?
5 p.m. So we would need to leave here about 4 p.m. And again, it's one of those things that I would encourage anybody who has the ability to go ahead and join us. It's a great way to have some conversation with other elected officials and get an update from CML, et cetera, on what's going on. Of which I'm sure there will be an update on whatever the state does in their special legislative session that started today to try to, again, solve the property tax issue. The last thing that I would highlight is There was some discussion to create a fall version of a leadership forum that was held earlier this year in Glenwood Springs, where Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan had suggested that might be something that we would consider doing here in town. One, to bring people to town, maybe have a short program, but then have some updates from the various communities, but really get it to the point where it starts highlighting central western Garfield County instead of everything being on the east side. A date that we had kind of landed on that doesn't get it too late in the year was September 25th. I did confirm with the folks at Roslenda that they are available that night and would be happy to host us. I have a conversation with the mayor of Glenwood Springs on Thursday morning to just have a conversation on how they went about setting it up and what, how they did it and whether they'd be a resource for us in terms of whether we want to do this. But I raise it to see whether there's good interest in saying, let's go ahead and do this and highlight Silt a little bit and invite folks to Roslenda and have a similar event. I wouldn't say that this is something that we particularly would host every fall, but it might be we do it this year and Rifle does it another year, Newcastle does, it just gives us a chance to showcase our community and bring people to town.
I really like the idea, but I'm out of town on that day, but I don't expect you to schedule it around my schedule, so.
It's the night before the other thing.
It's the night before the other thing. It would be a busy week.
That's my only thought. Otherwise, that's great.
Yeah.
No, that's a good idea, yeah.
I'm available.
It's before an election too for local officials as well, so I think it's a chance for them if they choose to attend to speak to other electeds, other stakeholders, maybe Larry Stewart from the chamber, Alicia, who's on Rifle Council, but is also the head of the CRV EDP, those types of things. I know, Andrea, you and I were at the last one, and it was, you just got to interact and talk semi-offline with a bunch of other community stakeholders, elected and otherwise. And I thought fall would be a great time to do that in the town of Silt, because where are we going to do it in January?
Yeah.
And where do we want to do it in July? The answer is nowhere. So it seemed like good timing, seasonally. And in sort of casual conversations with a number of people from other communities who went to the first one, a lot of them are waiting for someone to announce the second. So I thought this is a good chance for us to just jump in to the front of the line.
We've got a short timeline, but I think it's doable. Especially, I think, to your comment, it's an election year.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interest in anybody who's running for anything to be there. Did we get any confirmation from Carly at Two Forks? Is she going to be able to be involved?
The whole group.
Excellent.
There's that noise again.
Now my report is late.
Beep, beep.
And I've already broken my cardinal rule. It's after 9 p.m. and you guys are still here.
How are we going to get the word out about the event? I know you're speaking with the mayor of Glenwood and leveraging that, but what do we have?
They have a mailing list that they would be willing to let us use, and we would just get it out relatively quickly.
But we'll also share with Dave in Newcastle, Travis and Parachute.
Correct.
Great.
Okay, sounds great.
Good.
Cool. Yeah.
No, September 25th?
Yes, it's already in my calendar.
Correct. That's all I had to report tonight.
Okay. Any other staff members have anything exciting?
We have a concert coming up September 6th. It's an AC/DC tribute. We have a local favorite, Zin Zin, that's going to open. We are going to have a foam party, not just for the kids, so anybody can jump in.
And
And it will be glow in the dark.
And
We have face painting. I don't know what you want from me.
on the Hook food truck is going to be
Oh.
at the pavilion, starting I think at 3:00.
Oh, wow.
So they'll be there until I think 5:36.
That'll get a lot of people there
6:30.
early. That place always has a line.
So
Rain or shine.
Great.
That's awesome.
we managed to land a food truck.
Awesome.
Nice.
I'm sure that they were more than happy to come that day. And when they found out there's be, like, last time there was like 700 people there.
They had planned to just be out here,
Yeah, no, that's,
and
yeah.
we asked them to be up. I did try to ask them to
Stay later?
adjust their hours longer, but we'll work on that.
They're kind of set where they're
what
at. But
happens.
the nice thing is that it'll get people there earlier, I think, for the stuff going on earlier versus everybody showing up late. Yep. Because people will be up there to grab their food and they'll just go sit in the park afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully it warms up a little bit, a little bit before then, because there's a cold front that just came in.
Welcome to Colorado.
I know.
It'll be wonderful.
It'll be 81 days, 60 the next, and 90 the next.
Yeah.
Great for metal buildings.
Snowed in California.
Exactly.
Great if you live in a shipment container.
That's what it was.
Okay. Joe, you got anything for us?
I do. The Sunrise water tank went back online today, so that project was complete today.
Nice. Oh, nice.
Oh, and we should mention that one of our wells went down.
Yeah, the water plant, but I think we've got an idea to how to fix it. Pull new wire, put in conduit for new wire that's going to be put in with a new water plant, so we can get it back up and running.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Then updates from the board and board comments. Trustee Poston?
Don't have much of a comment, but I did want to ask if it is coming in the plans for us to look into the liquid cash that we have for the town. I was just looking at the financials. We have total 8.8. We are looking into those options for better returns and just wondering if that's in queue for this year, maybe early next year, or where we are at to see.
It's in the
our
queue.
Options.
It's in the queue.
Okay. We have funds in the bank and see safe right now. I think we had $200,000 in returns total from C-Safe for the year of 2000, by the time we had the audit or something like that. But I was just kind of inquiring to see when we get to review those items again and have some options, especially when we have a town manager that has a background that's very strong in banking. Can come up with good recommendations.
By trade, I am not an investment
I'm not
advisor.
calling you an investor.
Okay. Trustee Engelhardt?
I want to report that last week I went to a seminar on effective governance that was hosted by the Colorado Municipal League. I think because as an attorney, you are required to sign up for seminars in order to keep your licensure. So I see a seminar and I sign up for it. So I went for that and it was quite informative, and they're going to share the PowerPoints with me. And there was a town clerk, there was a town manager, there was like one of every single one of us from towns like Georgetown, Crawford, just small towns from all over the place. And so it was just interesting to hear some of the ideas and some of the situations they'd run across and some of the solutions they found. And so if any, I can just send out the PowerPoints to anyone who wants it. And it was fairly interesting for the subject matter, and I thought they did a good job. So, and that was the condensed version. If anybody wants to go to a 2-day workshop on effective governance, that is also available to you. So that's all.
Okay. Trustee Brittenell?
Just make sure we get out, and there's a lot of good events coming up. Yeah, no, not a whole lot really.
Trustee Clausen?
I'll keep it short tonight. I had 3 questions. River Trace on the east end of town?
Mhm.
It looks like they've kind of stopped again? Or are they...
They
or are
haven't stopped. They picked up their last 2 building permits, so they should
Oh,
be,
okay,
yeah, they're
okay.
progressing. I saw that they started to put stucco over the weekend.
Okay, okay.
So, yeah.
Because, yeah, it seemed like it was a long time without any movement. So.
Yeah, yep, no, they're progressing ahead. Weekly, they're getting inspections. We share the same inspector that comes
Uh-huh.
down that they had contracted
okay,
privately.
okay.
And so he's been doing inspections there every Tuesday and
Gotcha.
Thursday, so they're
Okay.
progressing, yeah.
All right. And I see Camarillo's coming along. I see they have some asphalt down on,
They
on
do.
a little
It
portion
looks,
there.
yeah, it looks nice what they've gotten done so far. So they're going to keep chugging along forward as well. They're hoping to have all of the infrastructure done before the snow flies
Uh-huh.
is their goal.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
And my other one was the River Run, no, the tiny homes. No.
River Run?
Yeah.
Yeah.
River Run. When are they going to get that entrance finished, or is that part of the future storage units someday?
Everything over at River Run with their compliance
Uh-huh.
issues that we had talked about before, that's all still in the hands of their attorneys and our attorneys.
Oh, okay,
So,
gotcha.
I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on. I know that.
I have a call with Attorney Sawyer tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
For trying to
that,
compel
okay.
an update.
Yeah. Yeah. It's work in progress.
All right, and that's all I have. Keep up the good work, staff.
I just want to mention tonight, the water deal is very important. It was a good presentation. We've got to be, it's not a given. Joe knows what I'm talking about. Cameo can put in a call. We got no water. And then the stroke of a pin from the western slope or down, our water's gone. That's how crucial it is. So it's really important to, like this tonight was really informative to kind of keep us up to date, what's going on, keep on top. We have somebody on top of it. Because I'm on the Silt Water Board and we deal with this every month. So, it's real important that it don't take much and we could lose our water rights. So a lot of our water, just like I say, wouldn't take much. The other question I have, how's your soccer sign up go?
Good. Soccer, that's what I was texting back and forth tonight. Soccer launched tonight, so I've been trying to connect coaches with their parents, people showing up at the wrong practices. But we have 4 U8 teams and then 4 U6 teams. So we have 8 teams total.
You found coaches for everything? 'Cause I know that you were
I
short.
did finally find coaches for everything. So everything is now launched and practices are underway. And,
Because Derek has time. He doesn't do anything.
I thought about that. Like, I should just get Derek to
kidding.
coach.
Is it up or down
upgrade
from
with
previous
kids.
years?
We had a lot of kiddos transition out of the U8. So in the fall, we typically have 4 and 4 in each age bracket, and then in the spring we end up having 5 and 5. So this year we're kind of right in line with where we have been for fall sports, with 4 in each age bracket.
I was just curious, somebody had asked me, I said, I don't know how many sign up, I don't have a clue, so.
Yeah. So right now we have 4 teams in each age bracket, and then so 16th Street is about to get really busy.
So where do they play? Just here, or they go different places, or?
Nope. So the micros just play here.
Okay.
So it's interclub. It's intertown teams playing each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. That's all I had.
3 things. The first is an update, the social settings for withdrawal management facility out in Glenwood that opened in the middle of June. We had our first quarterly meeting. It's fully staffed, so they're at full capacity in terms of being able to provide services. Right now, it seems like the major challenge they're having is getting local EMTs and law enforcement to choose to use their facility. And that's because they haven't done walkthroughs and training for local law enforcement. I confirmed that with Lieutenant Grombeck earlier today. No one from Silt PD's been over there. So I'm going to be reaching out to them this week to say that right now you're the tree falling in the forest. You gotta get those professionals over there so they know what you do and they know you're fully staffed. I also asked them to give us as much usage data as they have by the end of October so that it can roll into our budget process. Because right now, there's just not enough data for us to make a budgetary decision about. I said, I want to give you as long as possible, but we're getting rolling on the budget imminently. So we need the data relatively soon. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you had mentioned, last year, you had some concerns about funding something that was at the time theoretical, that it didn't have a live date. So remembering that, saying you've got to get us the real data about usage so that we can make a decision about budget based on that.
Right.
And I also told them to plan to be here to do Q&A when they're presenting the data, to be ready to answer some questions about what are the use cases, what are they going to be doing next year.
Okay.
The last thing was another request. Can I get an update on the municipal broadband efforts next meeting?
Yes.
You pulled off the September thing at Roslenda, so I'm going to let it slide.
Okay.
But it'd be helpful to know where we're at and what's next for that.
Okay.
I'm going to add one thing. Sorry, I can do that. At some point, I want us to come up, we talked about the new website, and if we're going to budget for it, we should probably have at least a high-level list of needs and wants to help us factor out what that costing is going to be, a wish list, if you will. Who would be the best person to take that on?
We've had internal discussions on it, so it just falls on my plate to begin with.
Okay. If you can send me a list, again, needs, wants,
Yep.
I can amend it with my own.
Okay.
And then we can figure out vendors and costs and timing, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, I just need to know what we're building. Cool. That's it.
Okay. I don't have anything, so I'm going to piggyback on Trustee Sievert's thing. So if we have 8 teams, is there 10 to 12 kids per team?
So the U8 team are 10 kids, so that's 40. And then the U6 teams are between the 8 to 9 players.
Okay.
There's a couple with each.
Okay.
So we have, rounding up, we have roughly 80 kiddos.
80 kids playing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume some of those are Newcastle and Rifle?
They are.
'Cause I don't think we have, we probably do have 80 kids in that age group in this town, but I'm sure
Yeah.
we're drawing in.
Yeah, I think we have 1 or 2 from Parachute and then a few from the Newcastle Rifle areas and then Silk kiddos.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I got nothing else, so.
Okay.
Next item is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Seifert to adjourn the meeting, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And Nicole?
Yes.
I've sat here.